Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Let's begin the daily quiz for today with question number 1 on your screen. Consider the following statements with regards to broken rice. Number 1. If rice kernels are not sound, it is called broken rice. Second, China is now the top buyer of Indian broken rice, which was earlier exported mostly to the African nations. And third, broken rice can be converted to make wine and noodles. Which of these given statements is or are correct? This question has been taken from an article in today's Indian Express newspaper. The correct answer here is D. All three given statements about the broken rice are correct. The broken rice has been exported in large quantities to China. In fact, the news article tells us that a Chinese delegation actually visited India before the pandemic, where they visited multiple rice mills and struck a deal about buying broken rice in large quantities, since these can be converted to make noodles and rice in large numbers. This is the article in the Indian Express that I am talking about. This article tells us that if rice kernel is not sound, it is called broken rice. Generally, broken rice is divided into two categories, big and small. The Food Corporation of India says that if pieces equal to or smaller than 3/4 but bigger than 1/2 of the average length of the unbroken kernels, then these are called big broken rice. Otherwise, the small broken rice is defined as pieces that do not exceed 1/4 average length of the unbroken kernel. Next, question number 2. Consider the following statements with regards to the National Judicial Data Grid, NJDG. Number 1. It provides information relating to judicial proceedings, decisions of all computerized districts and subordinate courts of the country. Second, the case data is available on the NJDG for both civil and criminal cases, with the ability to perform drill down analysis based on the age of the case as well as the state and district. Third, the NJDG doesn't mention any reasons for pendency of cases. Which of these given statements is or are correct? Now, I would highly advise you to just go on Google and search for National Judicial Data Grid. It is an excellent portal run by the government authorities that will give you a real-time update about the pending cases across the country, including a division between the civil and the criminal cases. Recently, as per the government's initiative, the portal now also includes the reasons for pendency of the cases. So the third statement actually is wrong. First and second are correct, so the answer here is A. It does include reasons for pendency of cases now. The reason why we are discussing this is because of this news article in the Indian Express that talks about the fact that in the Bombay High Court, 40% posts of the judges are vacant and close to 6 lakh cases are present according to the data given in the National Judicial Data Grid. I would highly advise you to visit the portal and see all the options available there. Question number 3. Who amongst the following is a chancellor of the Vishva Bharati University, which is a central government university? President of India, the Vice President of India, the Prime Minister of India, or the Union Education Minister? The correct answer here is C. It is the Prime Minister of India who is considered as the ex officio Chancellor of the Vishwa Bharati University. The reason why we are discussing this is because the West Bengal Assembly has passed a bill to replace the governor with the Chief Minister as the Chancellor of all state-run universities. Now, as you would know, the by default convention that we have across the country is that the governors are the chancellors of the state universities across the country. However, the West Bengal government has now transferred this power to the chief minister. The West Bengal government in fact made a statement that why can't the chief minister be the chancellor of state university if prime minister is a chancellor of central university such as the Vishwa Bharati? And that is why this question has been asked. The West Bengal government also said that the Panchi Commission, amongst its recommendations, also said that governor should not be given the power of being a chancellor of the state universities. Question number 4. The lake Sawa in Iraq has been seen in the news recently because, number 1, huge deposits of natural gas are found underneath it. Second, huge deposits of crude oil are found underneath it. Third, the lake has dried up. Or fourth, it is the country's first private lake. The correct answer here actually is C. This is in the news unfortunately because the lake has dried up after many years. This is the news coverage in the Indian Express which tells us that for the first time in centuries long history, Iraq's Lake Sawa has dried up. The reasons include the mismanagement by local investors, government neglect, and climate change. Because of this, large chunks of salt can now be seen here at the bedrock of the Lake Sawa. Next, question number 5. Consider the following statements. Number 1. Web 1.0 was the first generation of the internet made of static web pages that only allowed for passive engagement. Second, Web 2.0, the internet of today, has created a social web allowing the users to communicate with servers and other users. Third, Web 3.0, the next generation, envisages a digital world built on blockchain technology and driven by artificial intelligence, where people will interact without needing any intermediary. And fourth, Web 5.0 is aimed at building an extra decentralized web that puts you in control of your data and identity. Which of these given statements is or are correct? The correct answer here is D. All the four given statements are correct. The reason why it is in the news is because the founder of Twitter, that is Jack Dorsey, who was earlier the CEO of Twitter also, announced his vision that he and his team are now working to build a decentralized web platform which will be called Web 5.0. The aim is to give users the control of their data and their privacy completely, which does not happen over the present internet. This entire article tells you about the various versions of internet, starting from Web 1.0 till Web 5.0. These kind of questions have often been asked in the UPSC Prelims examinations, so do make a note of that as well. Next, we have a previous year question from 2021. Under the Indian Constitution, the concentration of wealth violates number 1, right to equality, second, the directive principles of the state policy, third, the right to freedom, or fourth, the concept of welfare. The correct answer here is B. It is a part of directive principles of the state policy and is mentioned in Article 39 subsection C. I'm sure all of you would have read about this particular directive principle in particular. This talks about the fact that the ownership and control of material resources of the community should be distributed to serve the common good. And part C says that operation of economic systems should not result in concentration of wealth. It is the government's responsibility to make sure that these directive principles are implemented. These two are considered as the most important directive principles and thus they are allowed to violate fundamental rights of Article 14 and 19. This particular fact has been given in article number 31C of the Indian Constitution, which I'm sure you would have read in Indian polity. Next, we have a fact of the day, and today we will be discussing about type 1 diabetes. The reason why it is in the news is because the ICMR has for the first time issued guidelines on this form of diabetes, which is much rarer as compared to the type 2 diabetes. The type 1 diabetes is also called childhood diabetes mainly because it impacts children as compared to adults. In fact, it is so rare that only 2% of all the hospital cases of diabetes in India are actually of type 1 diabetes, while all others are type 2 diabetes. The reason why it is a concern in India is because India is considered as the diabetes capital of the world with such a heavy load of the disease. Now, type 1 diabetes is a condition where the pancreas completely stops producing any insulin, which is responsible for controlling the level of glucose in the blood by increasing or decreasing the absorption to the liver. While in type 2 diabetes, the body's insulin production goes down or becomes slightly lesser, but in type 1, it stops completely. The type 1 diabetes is predominantly seen amongst children and adolescents and is considered as extremely serious. So much so that if a person with type 1 diabetes stops taking their insulin, they would die within weeks. And that is why it is extremely serious. As per the article, there are over 10 lakh children and adolescents across the world which have type 1 diabetes, out of which India accounts for the highest numbers. The total number of people in India living with diabetes was about 7.7 crore in 2019, which is extremely high. The exact cause of type 1 diabetes is still unknown, but it is believed that it is an autoimmune condition where the body's immune system destroys its inland cells on the pancreas, which are responsible for production of insulin within the body. The guidelines that are issued by the ICMR are 173 pages long These guidelines are developed with the help of leading diabetologists, including Dr. Nikhil Tandon, who works at AIMS. These guidelines give a detail on the diet, exercise, insulin monitoring, and prevention and treatment of other complications, including retinopathy, kidney disease, etc. Although giving insulin artificially to the children can be a lifesaver in this, but researchers are now looking for a cure, and there are some encouraging results that have come out, especially from the stem cell therapy. This is all that you needed to know about the guidelines that are issued by the ICMR about type 1 diabetes. Thank you so much for watching the video.